Outcasts is Dark Age's first book in a new format. Before we used to do one book a year during Gen Con release. Now we're going to do it twice a year. This allows us to come up with products a lot faster, and you no longer have to wait the entire year to see the product trickle out.
So one of the nice things moving to this book format has allowed us to do, it's allowed us to focus on an army when we release it. So this book is Dark Age Outcasts, which means that not only are we going to have the Salt Nomads in here, but we've gone back and we've looked at the generic Outcasts, the Slavers, and the Bounty Hunters, and basically done a full rebalance of all the units.
What we're able to do with this, it's kind of a new format for us. What we're able to do is not only advance the overall storyline, but we introduce the new characters, and we can kill off some of the old ones. Nobody panic, you can still use them in your force lists, but some characters live, some characters die.
This new format allows us to release an army or a faction every 6 months. With the Outcasts, not only are we seeing a new faction, the Salt Nomads, we're also going to revamp the entire Outcast faction.
Salt Nomads are the people that live to the north of the inhabited region on Samaria, which it's the only habitable region on Samaria at all. It's an area about the size of Texas, and they live in the worst part of that. It was an old lake where a lot of the old corporations back before the fall had a lot of secret bases underwater, and that got cleared out by a meteor impact sometime after the fall, and it left this great all these great salt dunes. And so the Salt Nomads live basically in the worst part of this entire planet, and they not only live there, but they manage to thrive.
The Salt Nomads are very different than other armies. They wear very light armor. The art direction is very, very focused with a lot of muted colors. You can almost feel the dryness of the air and the sand in the face.
So the Salt Nomads are making their appearance now, and that's actually due in part to strong narrative tie-ins. Basically, they've been okay with just inhabiting up the northern waste until now, but due to events in the storyline, the clans have started to unify themselves and start a war march on the Forsaken. So now we're actually seeing them enter into the storyline as a main player, which is why their army is now being released.
The story actually begins with Lilith, who is one of the most influential members on the Prevailer Council down in New Ashkelon. And she's looking to stabilize the whole of Samaria. And to do that, she needs the Outcasts united. So she engineers this conflict between the Slavers and the Salt Nomads.
The Outcasts by and by wander across all of Samaria, but they mainly inhabit the northern waste. The Salt Nomads lived in one of the harshest regions of this, the Salt Flats. Up until recently, they were fine just doing trades of other Outcasts and Forsaken factions, but events in the storyline have caused them to go on the warpath. Basically, they've declared a war against both the Slavers of Chains Barrow and the Forsaken to reclaim holy technologies that were traded off by the previous leaders of the tribe. So who are the Salt Nomads and what sets them apart from the other Outcasts? Well, you have the generic Outcasts, who are kind of your jack of all trades, wasteland, wanderers, and scavengers. And then you have the Slavers of Chains Barrow, who by and by as a faction feature a lot of prominent range attacks and the ability to dole out panic counters to people. The Salt Nomads in general are your melee powerhouses of the Outcasts. So the Salt Nomads have a unique mechanic called Vengeance, which is basically as their models start getting killed, their army is going to start accruing Vengeance counters. These counters are going to be able to be traded for attack buffs, ranging from just additional bonuses to hit, to damage, to even being able to reroll attack dice. So the more of them you kill, the more pissed off at you they're going to become, and the deadlier the remaining ones are going to be. So while there's a big diversity within the Salt Nomads, they basically function out into two different playstyles. One, you have your melee units, who are going to be your infiltrators, your direct damage dealers. They have a lot of subterfuge and a lot of quick glass cannon style units. The other side of the army is actually the herders. Salt Nomads bring with them to war a bunch of pack animals, ranging from sand crocodiles to vrocs, which are these giant raptor birds, to dust bulls.
So as we are looking to expand the setting as a whole, questions have been raised about Samaria's wildlife. It is out there, and there's not a lot of it, of course, but it's definitely out there. And the Nomads especially make good use of it. Out there in the desert, a single clan between all the people and all their herd animals, and some of the predator animals, that sort of creates its own little mobile ecosystem, you might say.
Salt Nomads also feature some of the most deadly melee units in the game. ranging from the Hands of War, who are these really nasty kind of desert ninjas who can choose different fighting styles every turn, to Berserkers, who are these giant armor-clad warriors that just get into the middle of the enemy and then just go crazy and tear everything up and can't be brought down except by attack after attack after attack. So when we sat down to make this book, we had to think, what makes the Outcast the Outcast? And we wanted to basically take their central themes and really expand that to the army. So one of the things the Outcasts really have above any other faction is the Scavenging mechanic. We took those rules and we expanded them to more units. We gave them more options to exactly what they can do with their scavenge counters, and we changed some of the dynamics of exactly how units will interact with those. The last thing we were about changing was the bounty hunters. Now the bounty hunters are all unique characters, and we all want them to have a unique feel and bring something different to the army. We didn't want two of them to play the same. So we actually expanded the roster of bounty hunters, but in that we also went back and looked at the existing ones. And we said, okay, what makes this guy cool? And then we cranked that up to 11 basically. So overall for the bounty hunters, each of them should have a different tactical use and function within the army. And this creates a big diversity, not only of the ones we've added, but of the ones we've gone back and changed. So now, if you have a role in your army that's just lacking, or you just don't like the model that you have for it, we have an option for you to fill in that.
Some of the Dark Age sculpts are over a decade old, and during that time, sculpting skills and sculpting styles have come a long way. With this new format of redoing an entire army book, we have the opportunity to go back and redo some of the sculpts to have them be a little more current and fit in with our newer sculpts.
So we've changed the release schedule to be one new book every 6 months. These books are also going to be in an army book format. So for example, this is the Outcast book. It's going to have everything pertaining to the Outcasts in it and no other armies. When we release a Forsaken book, it'll have all the Forsaken units in it. Jagiri book, Jagiri, so forth and so forth. This allows us to really focus our efforts on one army at a time and really bring everything up into a fold.
So this book represents essentially a compilation of all of the Outcast units. If you're an Outcast player, this is the book for you.
So we're all really excited about this release and the things it means for the future of Dark Age, and we hope you guys are excited too.